alumni. He was also gold medalist for NISM PGDM, the first PGDM-based gold medalist. He is a product specialist who pitches Abacus products to offshore institutional distributors and ultra HNI clients. He works on presentation, monthly fact sheets, quarterly updates, and onboard clients. Also, he is looking after regulatory compliance for the firm and investors, liaisons with institutional clients, distributors, auditors, R&T, fund administrators, offshore and onshore both. Prior to joining Abacus, Nikhil worked in a power distribution company and was part of the corporate finance and accounting team, where he got the exposure in debt from the institutional debt market. Without wasting time, I'll request Nikhil to start his presentation. Over to you, Nikhil. You can now share. I'll just unshare.
Okay, thank you, sir. So briefly, about small cap fund. So Reliance Growth industry grew at around 100 times in 21 years. So typically, if the investor would have invested in year 2000, he would have invested at a NAV of rupees 10 in the at 1000 NAV. Okay, so it was 100 times compounding. We compound here and there industry. So basically, this is called compounding. Place a Reliance Small Cap Fund, which he managed for around 5 years, grew at a 2% versus the bench versus its benchmark, which grew around 20. So basically, I will briefly introduce about Abacus Asset Manager. This is a boutique asset management firm founded by Mr. Sunil Singhania, and he was global ex-CIO of Reliance. He was basically managing Reliance Growth Fund, was basically a multi-cap strategy, and the Reliance Small Cap Fund was a small cap fund. Reliance Growth Fund grew at a CAGR of around 30%. No, it grew at a pace of in 21 years. So typically, if an investor would have invested in the year, invested with a NAV of 10, when the NAV at that time around was rupees 1000. So that was the compounding effect. Now, the idea behind Abacus Asset Manager was basically to cater to ultra HNI segment. So we, in the year 2018, we introduced a multi-cap strategy called Abacus Growth Fund, same in line with Reliance Growth Fund. Okay, and in the year 2019, that is last year, we started a mid and small cap strategy called Abacus Emerging Opportunities Fund 1. We have done pretty well. The fund is up for Reliance Growth Fund. The fund is up around 17% versus its benchmark BSE 200, which is up around 1.3%. And mid cap and small cap index from its inception are down 5-6%. Opportunities Fund, which was a small and mid cap strategy, has delivered return of around 34% on an absolute basis versus its benchmark S&P, which is down around to 3.5%. The mid cap is up around 39%, and respectively, the small cap index is up around 54%. Move to my presentation, which I will be covering EMS as well as AIF industry. So basically, what we have seen in the past now, India has become the 5th largest economy in the world. It has a GDP of around $2.6 trillion and is poised to double in next 8 to 10 years. That is our estimation. The first trillion that we reached was in typical 58 years. The second trillion took around 7 years, and the third trillion was expected. Third trillion took around 6 years. Third trillion is expected to be around in 6 years. Asset management industry, as compared to the GDP of our country, is only 11%. So typically, players in the market are managing $3 billion of assets. So that compounding effect has come from year 2018. The industry has grown at around 50 CAGR. AMFI is basically the Association for Mutual Funds of India. Their expectation is around that in typically 5 to 7 years, the mutual fund industry will grow to $1.47 trillion. I'll move to the next. That invite someone to ask. I will ask the audience to ask questions. Right? If you're not understanding anything, typically these terms may be new to you, right? Because many of us are familiar with the market. Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Do you have a question?
No, not.
Okay. So can you see my screen, right? Everything is working normal?
Yes, the presentation is
Okay,
full
thank
and your
you.
voice is also.
So what we are seeing is that India is the fifth largest economy. It has a GDP of around $2.6 trillion. First trillion that we, first trillion dollars of GDP that we grew was in 58 years. Second trillion took around 7 years. The third trillion is expected to be, we will be reaching that milestone. It will be probably in this year or next year. It will be typically for 6 years period. Okay. Indian asset management industry or the mutual fund industry is around $50 billion, which is just 11% of the total GDP of the country. Right. So from the chart, you can see that US, as compared to India, has the AUM that they are managing is 103% of their GDP. Okay. India is still to grow. So that was the basic idea. Next slide covers that we are the among the last players of the industry. China is ahead of us with 14% of the AUM that they are managing. As a percentage, basically, in this slide, I am trying to say to you that mutual funds asset under management as a percentage of GDP is very less. So we can have many players. Okay. Now, companies listed, this is a dated data. Around 7,000 companies are listed in NSE and BSE. With number of HNIs, typically, we are the fastest growing HNI population. Right? We have around 3 lakh number of investors who have turned HNI in year 2017. Yet India remains, yet the Indian market, that is the Indian stock market per se, have very limited sell side coverage. Typically, we have sell side and a buy side. Sell side are basically stock who cater to the buy side firms, right? I think the audience must be aware of buy side and sell side. So you have brokers like Kotak, SBI Capital, which cater to buy side firms, hedge funds, PMS, etc. So that's why they are called sell side. Okay, buy is basically they manage the AUM of the investors. So you'll have a pooled investment vehicle where the investors, all the ultra HNIs or funds like sovereign fund, pension funds will invest. Okay, in a mutual fund or in PMS or a AIF. Okay, and these sell side brokers or the research analysts will cater to them, not to they cater to the retail investors also, but normally the institutional sector is the basic focus because they are able to generate brokerage through them. Then sell side basically is for generating brokerage. Okay. Now what we have seen is that sell side now typically for the market cap between 1,000 to 20,000 crore, typically the small and mid cap stocks that we are talking about. Only 42% of the companies, no, only 42% of these companies now have no broker coverage. 21% of these companies have one broker coverage. So basically, these companies are under research, and these companies are are because of the SEBI recategorization of mutual fund, right, in year 2017. So many of the multi-cap funds that the buy side analyst or the fund manager were managing have moved into large cap space. So these the mid cap and the small cap segment or the stocks or the index per se, you must have seen that in year 2017, 2018, 2019, there was a fall. Okay. From year 2019 onward, from year 2020, last 2 months, we have seen a decent rally in small and mid cap space. Now, the market, the AUM per se, or the mutual fund industry. Sorry?
Yeah, I have a doubt in see.
You have a doubt? Yeah, go ahead.
We are the country which had more number of listed companies.
Your voice is cracking. Hello?
Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
See, we are the country where more number of companies listed on the stock exchanges. At the same time, where AUM is very less. So, what might be the reason for that?
Typically, the audience of not so much informed, right? We have 70% of the investors still investing in FDs, okay, which give a return of around 4 to 5%. Recently, from March on, we have seen a track toward period. We have no investors investing in markets, and due to this, SEBI the Security Exchange Board of India had recently come out with this circular regarding trading. We had uninformed okay. So typically, if there to the US,
You are not audible.
yeah. Oh. Yeah, still our investors come up with the SEBI campaign or with the AMP. Okay. Yeah. So you're coming to the first point of the question, right? Why the mutual fund industry or the AUM that we have has not developed significantly as compared to the other developed markets. Our country is still in developing GDP stage, okay, developing country stage. Secondly, the investors here are not so informed, right? Typically, they come. You will have Rambo investors coming into the market. Their first time experience is wrong. They come into this advisory kind of WhatsApp chats, etc., where they are not informed. So if their first time experience is wrong, so they typically think the market as a satta market, which is not the thing. Okay, they don't understand the basic terms like price to earnings, price to book, right? So if their first time experience is wrong, so they typically will switch out. Also in US now, every 2 or 3 household has a mutual fund, okay, has a mutual fund investment. Here in India, 70 to 80% of our investors are still into FDs, or before that, the rural market was concentrating into collective investment schemes. We had Sahara scam, okay, we had some Rose Valley scam, etc., where typically the money of the investor were lost.
Then, see, if that is the
Okay.
case, so what is the reason for listing these many companies when the investments are very low?
Your voice is not audible, sir.
Nikhil, are you able to hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I am saying, see, if the when investments are very low, so what is the reason for listing of these many companies and so many IPOs are coming? So what is the reason when the investment is, because we are discussing the investment are low and people are not interested to invest in the market because of their past experiences, etc. So whether they when
Mhm.
they're going for FDs, then why
Yeah, yeah.
companies are getting listed on the stock exchanges?
That is a very good question, right? If the market is up now, will have companies coming into the primary market for for their fund requirements. Basically, the banks as well as the debt mutual fund, okay, which are typical fund givers to the market for the secondary as well as for the working capital requirement. They are risk averse right now, okay, so they have to tap some market for raising their funds. The business cannot lose out, right? So we have basically to cover their funding needs as well as uh, uh, to get an exposure uh, of their unlisted, uh, I may say the unlisted space, right? We have number of entrepreneurs coming into the market. As we have recent, we have also started an entrepreneurship cell. Someone from us will come to the primary market for raising funds, right? So primarily we have.
Sorry to
Sorry.
interrupt, but I still have one
Yeah.
more question for this.
So we to answer your question, in the lower segment of the lower segment, like in the small cap space, we have number of IPOs coming in, right? But not in the large cap
Along with that,
space
I
or
have
the
one
mid
more.
cap.
I want to add one more point for that. See, number of IPOs
Yeah.
are coming. At the same time,
I don't. Typically, you are wasting the audience time. Anyways, you can go ahead. I'm not here to debate about why the companies are coming in the IPO space. That is my perspective, right? I may be right or I may be wrong. Anyways, you can go ahead.
no. I am saying that see, when people are not ready to interest or invest in the secondary market, but overwhelming response is coming for IPOs. So, what might be the
Right.
reason for the change?
Typically, these companies that you are referring to, right? I cannot name those companies because I'm in, I'm in a
Okay,
fund, right?
we
We can
can
have
take
exposure into
questions
a
at
fund.
last. Yeah, we can
Yes,
have
sir.
questions at last. Please allow
So
Nikhil
just to
to continue his
answer your
presentation.
question, these companies
Please, please.
are into the space that they are in, like Root Mobile, anything. I'm not referring to a particular IPO here because we may have some exposure out there. So basically, these companies are have a name in the have a market reputation. Okay. Secondly, institutional clients which have quite a few, which are managing quite a large AUM, right? So these are informed investors. They take informed decisions, right? So these fund managers are typically investing in those stocks. We have NSC and NSC Emerge also. That is a SME platform. Okay. So basically, what we are seeing in the last few years now, the companies which have good market reputation, which can grow, which can typically grow at above market rate. Suppose in an industry, in IT industry, suppose you grow at 5 or 6%, Infosys or TCS. If another player grows at 20 or 25%, right? So typically those companies will come to the market and will get over subscription. You're getting the point? Anyways, I'll move ahead. So also now in the IPO space, you have you must have a sufficient number of QIBs and anchor investors before you come to the retail clients, right? Your book should be subscribed first. Anyways, so what is the new normal in the AMC industry? The market is concentrated where the top 5 AMCs now are managing around 60% of the AUM, whereas top 10 players like HDFC AMC, SBI Mutual Fund, etc., are managing around 82% of the AUM. Right? AUM is assets under management. Basically, the investors who invest into the stock market can invest directly into the stock market, or can come through a mutual fund, PMS, or a AIF route, or through an investment advisory route. Right? So basically, the traction that we saw in the mutual fund industry, the AUM is around 27 lakh crore. Right? Top 10 AMCs are managing around 82% of the AUM. Your question was about valuation, etc. So HDFC AMC has the highest valuation because of this, because of the market share, because they are the market leader. Now, second point is already covered. Third point, the audience that was asking why the investors are coming up, because Mr. Modi, our Prime Minister, came out with demonetization. All the black money that were kept in cash or liquid came out in the bank. We have GST coming out. All the formalization of the economy, literacy rate going up, financial savings moving from FDs to capital market space. You will have this industry growing manyfold. Now, what we have seen from the year 2017 now, with recent recategorization, this size of the scheme that they are managing, the fund managers that they are managing now, have made it difficult to generate alpha. The typical large cap mutual fund, or the fund house that the typical fund manager is managing, is of around 9,000 crore. It is very difficult to generate alpha. They have only top 3 or 4 names, right? Like Reliance, like top 3 to 4 large cap names where they are investing. They are not finding out new names where to invest. So these fund managers who have emerged, who have set up their own boutique firm, okay, they are managing a small AUM size, like 1,000 to 1,500 crore. They are generating significant alpha as compared to a small mutual fund, or as compared to its large peers, because of the AUM that they are managing. Anyways, I will still require my audience, because it would be a very boring session. Panda sir, by your permission.
Yeah, you continue. No issue.
It's not like only I should go. It should be one-way communication. I can invite the audience, but they should not argue. You may have a different point of view. I may have a different point of view. You should listen to me also, right? Yeah. If any of you have a question.
So, Nikhil, I have a question. There's a lot of money flowing in the market. You know, the Sensex. If you see, the Sensex is again not all-time high. It's again gained by 25%. It's gained by 25% from the March. But if you see the numbers, the economic factors which affect like by GDP growth, my NPA, my interest rates, all are not very conducive environment for this. Then what is leading to this entire spurt in the system? What is so crazy about investors to buying in bulk? So I would like to say something on this.
Yeah, sir. So I may be wrong on this point of view, but I will give my perspective on it. So basically, we have number of demat accounts opened from March 2020. The second factor is the market is always forward looking. With the economy opening up, with the unlocking phase, We have around 5 unlock phase, right? Typically, we have lockdown, then the market crashed, then we had this unlocking phase, and then the market started. The Sensex was first growing, then we had small cap and the mid cap segment catching up to its larger peer. Thirdly, what we have seen is that Fed pumping in liquidity into the market. We have RBI keeping the rates very low to the lifetime low, if I am not wrong. With the hot money coming in from outside, FIIs, there was a massive withdrawal in the month of March where around 60,000 crores of FIIs took out their money, both in the FNO as well as in the large cap or in the stock space. Okay, so this is the third factor. Fourth factor is the market is seeing attraction for some industry like pharmaceutical. We have IT. Also, we have some segment of the market rallying. And so also, if you see in the index composition of Sensex or the Nifty, we have Reliance, TCS, and the HDFC twins having the maximum share. Okay. So typically now they cover around 30 to 40% of the market weight. With the private equity deals in the Reliance, right? You have so the large cap funds have taken much more exposure in Reliance, TCS, etc., and that these stocks have rallied and leading to the indexes catching indexes also rallying. So that is a typical 5 or 6 factors that is my view. I may be wrong. Should I go ahead, sir? Any further question?
No, Nikhil, thank you very much. You can go ahead.
Yeah, sir. So basically now, we have three investment vehicles where a typical investor can invest in. I was talking about buy side. So majorly we have 4 players. I have not listed out the 4th player. That is the investment advisory firms. With recent, I should not comment, but with the recent circular of SEBI, that platform has been affected, and many large players have taken a different view. Like we have some players like HDFC IFL, who were typically both in advisory as well and distribution platform, right? So they have taken a back seat. They have said no to us for distribution of AIF and PMS because these are commission-based products. And since they have a advisory license now, so they have to invest through a direct channel. So our industry has also been simultaneously being affected. Also, the investment advisory platform has been affected because of the commission structure being reduced from typically it was 20 to 30% that some of the firms were charging. Now that has come down to 1,25,000 for either the investor can either opt for fixed management fee of 1,25,000 or a fixed or a sharing model of 2.5%. So basically that model has been disrupted, and that has those players that were in investment advisory firms like Purnartha, etc., will eventually by March 2020 will have to abide by the circular, and the commission structure will be like 2.5% for them also, right? Typically in a mutual fund, PMS and a AIF, the management fee that can be maximum that you can charge to the investor is 2.5%. Okay. Now, yeah. So I was just giving an industry perspective. I should not deviate from the subject. We have a mutual fund, PMS, and a AIF, right? Mutual fund is typically for a retail or a HNI client. PMS and AIF cater to ultra HNI investors because of the ticket size that they are managing. The typical ticket size that a PMS is managing is around 50 lakhs. Okay, for a AIF it can For Cat 1 and Cat 2, it is less. But for no. For AIF, you have to take minimum commitment of rupees 1 CR. I was wrong. So this is just a distinction between so this is just a distinction between a mutual fund, PMS, and a AIF. Basically, you have retail and retail clients investing into mutual fund. In PMS, you have HNIs and those investors who are informed and they want to invest through a fund house who have experienced fund managers. And in AIF, you have basically, because of the ticket size of 1 CR, you have ultra HNIs investing it through them. In a mutual fund, you have online and offline route. In a PMS, okay, and a AIF, you have offline route only, because you have to sign a private placement memorandum and a disclosure document has to be given to you before you start your investments. Okay. Typically, you have liquidity in mutual funds. PMS is open-ended. After 1 year, you can exit without any exit load. In an AIF, it's basically open-ended as well as close-ended. But typically, because of the tax structure, we have close-ended funds more. Taxation you would not understand. That will be covered in the next or future slide. The minimum investment that a mutual fund is managing is of rupees 500, 5,000 SIPs, etc. Okay, the annual expenses that can be charged, that in a typical mutual fund is between 2 to 2.5%. In a PMS, it is ranging between 1 to 2.5%. It is a customized product depending upon the investor and the distributor, that can be negotiated upon. In an AIF, it's a fixed structure because a private placement memorandum has to be filed with SEBI before you start distributing your product. Okay. So this is all a privately placed PMS, and an AIF is typically a private placed vehicle as compared to a mutual fund. Mutual fund, you will have open marketing, right? By a privately placed vehicle, I'm saying mutual fund can market their products. Whereas PMS or a AIF have to go through a distributor with recent regulations of in the PMS side. We have informed investors coming through direct route also. In a mutual fund, transparency is high. In a typical PMS or a AIF, you'll have a little less transparency. By that, I mean the investors would not know these stocks on a daily basis. They would be, as per regulations, they have to be given monthly fact sheets, quarterly updates, okay, where they will be disclosed their stock holdings. Okay. Maximum number of fund investors in a mutual fund is unlimited. In a PMS also, you will have number of investors coming into the strategy up to the time the fund manager. It's in the discretion of the fund manager. Hello. Yeah. So if anyone is not understanding these terms now, can ask, because this may be a new subject for all of us. We have been because in the public domain now you have mutual funds, but PMS and
could you please explain about the PMS and AIF?
So PMS and AIF is similar to a mutual fund structure. Okay. It's a pooled investment vehicle. Okay.
Yeah.
But PMS, you'll have to have a demat account. Okay. It would be held. The stocks that would be held in your name. You will have to execute a power of attorney. Okay, and that power of attorney has to be executed in the custody's name as well as custody in who will hold your securities. Okay. And a fund manager and in the portfolio manager. Okay. So the power of attorney is basically a document that will give the execution rights. I am typically saying of the discretionary PMS side.
Okay.
and the non-discretionary, I will come later to that.
Okay.
Just the beginning. So basically now, once I will introduce the topic, it would be better. This is just a distinction,
Sure.
right?
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll start with the PMS core subject. Basically, we lost time. Anyways, yeah. So these are basically managed accounts because fund manager is managing for you. You have discretionary PMS and a non-discretionary PMS. Discretionary PMS is where the fund manager takes decision on the investor's behalf. You will have demat account. Okay. The power of attorney will be executed in favor of the fund manager, and the fund manager will typically hold stocks as well as debt in your name and will execute those strategy according to the model portfolio or the investment strategy that they have filed in their disclosure document. Disclosure document is nothing but a kind of a SID, right? Typically in mutual fund you have SID. In a PMS you have a disclosure document that has to be given upfront to the investor as well as to SEBI. Okay. Yeah. So basically now you will have a portfolio in stocks, fixed income, structured product, and that will be at a discretion of the fund manager if it's a discretionary PMS. In non-discretionary PMS, you will have to take consent of the investor before investments. Minimum investment size is 50 lakhs. You will have professional as well as personalized. Basically, they are your wealth managers. The fund managers that are typically investing on your behalf are basically managing your wealth on your behalf. What are the advantages as compared to a mutual fund? This is a professional management, transparency because you have securities in your name. Details of each trade comes to you on a daily basis because NSE and BSE have to give trade alerts to the to the investors. Fee can be customized as compared to a mutual fund or a AIF. Fee can be customized in a demat account. It's a customized solution. It can depend upon the risk and reward risk profile of the investor. Right. Before investing into any fund, you will have asset allocation to be done. How will you do that? You have to basically do a risk profiling of your investor, whether the investor is high, medium, or low risk investor. So typically upon the risk reward ratio now, the stocks or the customized portfolio is built for that investor. Also the according to the investors now, if the investor does not want to invest into Sharia stocks or into cigarette stocks, so that list is also built in. How will you go for a typical fund manager, right? You have so many players in the PMS industry right now. Why will you choose Abacus or the other players? Because you will first see the track record of the fund manager. Also, depending upon the right asset allocation. If the investor, you have a risk profiler to be filled in before you start investing. So, and also whether the investor is comfortable in investing in equity, debt, or a structured product. So by asset allocation, I am clear, right? This topic must have been covered by Rachna ma'am, if I am not wrong. What is an asset allocation? What are the different asset classes? I will not move into that. Secondly, you have the flexibility and the ability to deliver alpha. How much is the investor, the fund manager able to generate alpha? By alpha, I mean how much is the performance as compared to its benchmark. Typically, when you invest, right? If you want to generate typically if you want to generate same returns as the fund, you will either invest in ETFs or into the index fund. Why will you go to a fund manager and invest into them, paying a professional fee of 2.5%? So basically, the alpha or the return, excess return, you are able to generate over the fund return, right? So that is an important consideration while you choose a fund manager. you will also be shown a model portfolio. You will be also shown a disclosure document and the servicing capability of the fund. Now, how it typically works? So basically, for the regulatory side, you have to file a disclosure document with SEBI, and typically the same disclosure document has to be signed by the investor along with the demat account. Bank account is optional because many of the investors will have a bank account, right? Investors can either invest upfront through cash, or they can, if they have a existing demat account and have stocks. Yeah. So if they have stocks now, they will transfer those stocks into the demat account that have been recently opened through the fund manager. So you will have a model portfolio, right? And any fund strategy. By fund strategy, I mean like Abacus has a multi-cap strategy and a small cap strategy. So so the portfolio that you will be investing in, you will have to choose the strategy upfront. Depending upon the risk profile as well as the comfort of the investor. Many of the investors will try to invest only in large cap space. So you will have to choose the strategy which the fund manager is managing, which is into the large cap space. So the model portfolio that will be shown to you will be of large cap space rather than you moving into small cap or a mid cap strategy. Fixed cap fees can be typically a fixed fee structure or a performance fee structure. Performance fee, by performance fee, I mean that the fund manager will share any returns above the hurdle rate. Hurdle rate is nothing but any return that the fund manager will typically say you upfront that any returns above 12%. If your hurdle rate is 12%, the fund manager will charge some fees above that. So it is a performance fee basically. So if your fund is not guaranteeing you in equity, there is no guarantee. If your fund manager says to you that if I generate a return of in any excess of around 12%, okay, I'll be charging a performance fee of 15%. Okay. So at the end of the tenure, suppose if the fund is able to generate a return of 20%, 12% is my hurdle rate, and 15% is my performance fee. Okay. So 20 minus 12, on 8%, the fund manager will charge 15%. That is his incentive for managing your portfolio. So that has to be disclosed to the investor. Sorry, this is a little difficult to understand.
Yeah, you told us that he will be charging 15% on 8%, right?
Yeah.
That is
So
like
that is with carry. Yeah, that is with carry. Yeah, go ahead.
And like what about the principal amount? Like he will be charging on a surplus amount, right?
Yeah.
Like if we take the base 100 rupees and if he generated a return of 15%, that is 115 rupees, okay, with the base amount. Then could you please give an example regarding this one?
Yeah.
Like,
so the thing is that in the industry, two models are basically working.
Okay.
One is a fixed fee model. I will tell you upfront. I will charge 2.5% of the AUM that I am managing.
Okay.
Suppose at the end of the quarter, my 100 rupees, if I have invested 100 rupees in the fund, it goes to 120. I will charge 2.5% on 120. Okay, that is the first model. The second model is a performance fee model. Either I can have a fixed component also, right? Like I will charge a fixed fee model also and a performance fee model also. I will charge 1% of the 120 rupees that has been at the end of the quarter is your AUM 120 rupees, right? So on 120 I will charge 1%, as well as on 20 rupees now. 20 minus 12, 8 rupees. On 8 rupees I will be charging 15% performance fee.
Okay.
That is the second model. Third model is that on 20 rupees, I will not be charging any fixed fee. I will be charging a performance fee only on 8% that I have generated for you extra. So 12% is basically a hurdle rate. that typically a fund manager thinks that the index will be able to generate. I was talking about now why you will go to a fund manager rather than investing in an index fund. So if the index
Okay.
fund is able to generate 12% on a quarter basis or on an annual basis, right?
Yeah.
If I am
Yeah.
able to generate 20%, so 8% is my 8% is the typical alpha that I am able to generate.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Got it? Oh. Now the investors will be shared monthly portfolio as well as fund strategy update. If you want, I can show you the quarterly as well as the monthly fact sheet that we disclose to the investors. So that will probably come at the last of the presentation. I don't want to waste anyone's time because it's already 5:30. Taxation is at investors level. Typically, by that I mean this PMS and a mutual fund is a pass-through, has been accorded pass-through status. Any taxation has to be borne by the PMS holders or the DMAT holders. Okay, so you will have fund managers deducting TDS on the management fees that they are charging. Okay, AMCs will also typically share advance tax typically share, like you have advance tax to be paid every quarter on 15th of every month. These are operational parts you must be aware about it. These are typically interview questions. So basically now for clients, so basically the clients who are in the tax bracket have to be shared advance tax, the capital gain statement or the dividend statement to file their advance tax with the government. It comes every quarter on 15th of October, on 15th of June. So these statements have to be shared with those investors. Also, the investors have to be shared consolidated holdings as well as transactions. Like you have long only, if the fund is managing long only strategy. So the typical investor has to be typically shared capital gain statement, interest statement, right? So that then only you can file your taxes. Major players that they are managing, key players are Motilal Oswal, right? These are big players. They have significant AUM, above 2,000 to 10,000 crore of AUM they are managing. Okay, Purnartha is not a PMS right now, but I think that's my understanding, that they may also shift into this. Now I'll move into my core subject. What are alternative investment fund? What are its basically what is its advantage? Alternative investment funds now is basically a fund established in India. It is typically a trust form of or a company. Okay, so basically this is the thing. On the first top of it, you will have this alternate this fund AIF. Okay, middle will be typically a scheme of the fund. Okay, and these schemes will have this vehicle that you see in between now. That vehicle will be used to invest into stocks or into complex instruments. Okay, so this is quite a new subject for you all. That's why I'll not confuse you with all the technical terms. It's basically a privately pooled investment vehicle. Okay, where you will have ultra HNIs and the foreign investors, because FPIs are also allowed to invest into AIFs. So you will have feeder funds based out of Mauritius. You will have feeder funds based out of US coming into alternate investment space. Okay, taking exposure into Indian equities through this vehicle. You have SEBI Alternative Investment Regulations 2012 governing it. It is the master regulation. It is not governed by any other regulation. So previously now we were having family trust holding companies having a privately placed vehicle and investing into a stock market. That has been stopped by this regulation. Okay, these family trust holding companies, ESOP trust cannot invest, cannot make a AIF. Okay, cannot start an AIF. That is to say. Now, what is the life cycle of the AIF? typically you will have to take registration from SEBI. You will have fees component also. Okay, you will have to deposit some fees. Also, you must have a good track record. Okay, typically the fund size is of 5 to 10 years after you get a registration from SEBI. After you get, yeah. So typically after that, now you have to take, you have to file a private placement memorandum with SEBI. That takes around 6 to 12 months. I don't have a pointer, so I would not be able to tell you exactly what I'm referring to. But the 6 to 12 months that you are seeing now is a typical kind of periodic stage where you file your private placement memorandum, you appoint your custodian, you appoint your fund accountants, right? So all the administrative part you do here, and then you start your fund. And basically, before you market your product or before you distribute your product, now this is where you are seeing first closing, right? So 30 days prior to that, you have to file another revised private placement memorandum with SEBI with all the details regarding the fund administrators that you have appointed, etc. Now, basically, when you start your first close, when you start your fundraising stage, okay, and you close your fund, okay, then the first closing will start, suppose at T month. Suppose in April you start the funding, or you invite your investors to invest in. On last, you can typically invest, or you can typically close the fund now during this 1 year. So many of them will have multiple closings. Right? For us, we have weekly closing. For some of the players, you will have monthly closing. By closing, I mean the investors that you are investing, that you will be that will be coming in. You have to allocate NAV. NAV is basically the net asset value or the performance of the fund. Okay. So if my fund starts at rupees 1,000, okay, you will have first closing at rupees 1,000. Then you will have second closing. Suppose my fund moves, and if I have started my investments also and if I do weekly closings. So on the second week, I will be having NAV of 1,010, 1,020. Those investors that will be coming in, okay, will be coming through will be coming in on with 1,020 NAV, not with 1,000 NAV. So basically, you will have multiple closing. The final closing will typically happen after 12 or 18 months. Okay, so that will be the final closure. Now the commitment period starts. So this commitment period will be basically from first closing to the last period, and you have to. So basically, that in a close-ended fund, the investors would not have an option. Sorry, you can ask me questions before ending this session. Anyways, typically now you have Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 3 AIS structure. Okay, Cat 1. Should I elaborate more? Because this will take considerable time. I have few more slides to be shared. Basically, you can see in the commitments that I was mentioning now. You in Cat 1, you have 40,000 of crore commitment that has been raised. Category 2 AIF is the biggest player out here. They have raised around 2 lakh, 3 lakh crore of commitment. Category 3 or the hedge fund. Okay. So you may not be able to understand Cat 1, Cat 2, and Cat 3. It would be fruitful if I would take a physical section rather than coming into this. So a few more slides. Many of us would not be aware. I was also not aware. Some in this industry interaction only, I came to know there is a separate SEBI site where you can refer to any regulation, any orders that has been enforced, etc. Okay. So typically you will have everything under this one umbrella. Legal acts, rules, general orders that have been passed by SEBI, guidelines that have been issued, the regulation part, or the circulars that the SEBI has come out with. And basically, if you want to refer to any department of SEBI or to any circular relating to any intermediary, for suppose if I want to refer to AIF regulation, so typically I have to choose out here registered alternative investment funds, and then I have to take all the circulars, gadget information. So you have to be basically be updated before appearing for any interviews that are coming your way. Okay. So basically, if the interviewer is from the PMS side or from alternative investment side, you have to be familiar with this. Or this is typical circular that has been issued. Similarly, you will have for registered alternative investment funds, right? You will be having typical guidelines. Anyways, I will not waste time. So you had basically a fraud that was discovered by SEBI in the year 2017. Private placement memorandum was not disclosed to the investors. Sponsor commitment was not 10 CR. Okay. So like this, SEBI discovered multiple non-compliance of regulation, and they modified the regulation in year 2017 as well as in 2019. Amendment was passed. Okay. This you can see. Okay. Anyways, typically in US, etc., now in global level, our industry is still nascent stage. On a global front now, you will have typically institutional investors into 5 or 6 schemes or 5 or 6 asset classes. Okay. So basically you will have private equity, hedge funds, real estate. These are the different asset classes that comes into the umbrella of typically into a mutual fund, into a hedge fund. So these are basically private vehicles that have been set up. Okay. What are the commitment as compared to a mutual fund? Okay. You will have mutual fund AUM is around 27 lakh crore. For Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 3 total comes to around 3 lakh crore. So it's very small. And for Cat 3, which employs diverse or complex strategy, you have only 40,000 crore. So only 3 or 4 players are basically ruling this industry. What are the advantages as compared to a mutual fund or a PMS? Like in a mutual fund, you will have pool investment vehicle. Similarly, we will have a pool investment vehicle in AIF. Okay. But we will have a professional management. You can invest in a leverage vehicle, a leverage strategy. That is, by leverage, I mean you can invest into FNO. When you invest into mutual funds or a PMS, they are barred from investing into derivatives. They can only invest into derivatives, okay, only for hedging purposes. Here you can actually make strategies and you can do a back testing, etc. Okay, run your strategy, and then you can apply to SEBI for starting a fund, etc. Right. You have scale benefits. Typically, like a mutual fund, you have QIBs, anchor investors. Like my friend was saying about a IPO. Why the IPO subscription is so high? Because of the QIBs or the anchor investors investing into those funds. We have premium subscription. You have 300% of subscription in QIB category. So retail investors are much more interested into the QIB subscription, right? If a big fund is investing into those stocks, so why a retail investor will not invest? So that is the typical mindset. Anyways, so AIF can have scale benefit. In a PMS, you don't have a scale benefit. QIBs, anchor investors cannot invest. You have transparency. It's not so much transparent because typically, as per regulations, the investment holdings have to be disclosed to the investors on a quarterly basis, not on a monthly or a daily basis. So typically, if an investor is investing today, he will get his statements after the quarter end. He will only be shared on upfront face na NAV. That's it. SOA will come to him, which will have units and NAV. That's it. He won't be knowing where his funds have been deployed or where he has taken an exposure to. Same as this, you'll have AIF strategy, same as PMS strategy. What are the basic criteria while choosing a AIF category or a PMS strategy? So basically, you have to do a risk profiling. You have to do asset allocation for your investor. Depending upon your asset allocation, the investment and manager has an investment philosophy. Investment philosophy is basically a guidance to the fund manager where he can invest in or where he can develop his own strategy. So basically, by strategy, I mean a typical fund manager will have a buy and hold strategy, a complex strategy, like he will invest only in F&O, like long and short. Okay. Any investor, any ultra HNI investor, or any hedge fund, like we have ADIA coming on, Abu Dhabi Investment Authority into our fund. They did extensive due diligence into our fund. Okay, so you'll have to have significant track record before you can attract those investors. So typically, before you start investing now, like in PMS, you had a disclosure document. In a AIF, you'll have to have a contribution agreement that has to be signed. This is an agreement between you and the manager or the investment manager that they can manage your fund. Okay, so this is basically 60 to 70 pages of the legal document that has to be signed on every page by the investor. And he will also be given a private placement memorandum. That is the constitution document. By constitution document, I mean, like in India, Indian Parliament has to be governed by the Indian Constitution, right? So similarly, if many of the people are not understanding, a privately placed memorandum is nothing but a document, a legal set of documents that has to be given to the investor before the investor can invest into your fund. And you have to take a written consent of the investor that they have read all the terms and conditions written on the private placed memorandum, PPM. Investors can make capital commitment. So by capital commitment, I mean 1 CR. Okay. They can either invest in upfront mode or on drawdown mode. By drawdown, I mean they can either invest 100% now or in 20% now, 30% according to the terms and conditions mentioned on the PPM. Okay. Like I was mentioning, we will have multiple closures. Fees is standardized. It cannot be customized. You'll have fees upfront to be disclosed to the investor. So basically, in Cat 1 and Cat 2 now, the investor have to file taxes. For Cat 3, since the vehicle is a trust vehicle now, as a representative SSE, all the taxes will be filed through will be filed through your fund, not through investors, basically. So if the strategy employs a complex strategy like an F&O, this is a typical interview question that comes around. That if the F&O or the complex strategy funds or the Cat 3 funds, why they are not able to grow at a rapid pace as compared to Cat 2 or Cat 1? Okay, because the taxes that the F&O strategy or the F&O players are employing, okay, they are being taxed at 42.7%. So that is the biggest drawback that we are seeing in the industry right now. FPIs are allowed to invest typically through this investment vehicle to Cat 3. Okay, FPIs can invest into complex strategies like F&O, futures and option, and they are charged 10% if they have a DTA with Mauritius. But Indian players, Indian long and short funds now, they are not able to take benefits or the benefits of CAT 3 because of this complex tax strategy. You are charged at 42% if you are making 100 rupees, right? 42% of it government. So who will work on this market where you have a thin margin of 2.5%? Okay, that is the practical issue that we are facing. Okay, but for a long only strategy, like Abacus, or you have buy and hold strategy, they are taking advantage. They are taking regulatory advantage because of this, because you have a typical CAT 3 player, okay, who employs long only strategy. They have to pay 17% taxes on short-term capital gain, okay, and for long-term capital gain, they have only to give 11% as compared to complex structure like FNO, where you have to give 42.7% for employing your on the profits that you are generating. So these are your key players that will come in hopefully in your interview. Okay. So for CAT 1, you have VC, you will have typical players like Blue, who have invested into Reliance, right? Private equity players. You have funds coming in through FPI route, okay? And they will be investing into big fund houses or big companies through them. So getting into CAT 1 or a CAT 2 or a CAT 3 is a big thing, because here the salary is quite good as compared to a typical industry or in typical sell side brokerage. Pressure is also a little less. Yeah. So thank you. These are few more annexures that I have compiled. So Preqin Global is basically a global hedge monitor. Okay. So how the industry is moving on, and the AUM that on a global scale that the industry is managing. Okay. So as compared, our industry is very small. We are a very small player right now. I'll not waste any more time. Yeah. So basically, this is the head counts or the number of persons that are being employed by the typical hedge fund industry. This is on a global scale. If you are trying for a global fund management house, okay, like ADIA, you have sovereign wealth funds, right, who are managing quite a significant AUM. So the headcount out there is also very small, but you will have good exposure as compared to the Indian scene, because you will be managing money from all over the world. This is for the AIF. This I have collated from the SEBI website. Around 435 funds have been granted license. I don't know the typical. It's of 2018. Total employee count per fund is around 7 persons. We have very less people who are employed, but they are able to manage quite a significant amount of AUM. Typically, you have 500 crore of AUM that a typical fund house is managing right now.
Now, anyone is having any question, you can unmute yourself and ask, or you can write in the chat box also. And Nikhil, I request you just you share your experience, how you are preparing for the placement, how you are managing your time while you are a student at NISM, how you are using the library. Just encourage your junior brothers and sisters how they can prepare from now.
I'm having like doubt regarding this thing. Like whatever you were taught in like in our college, how much is are you applying that in your in your job right now?
Yeah. It was Venkata, you have asked, right? This question.
Yeah, it is my question, Ashish. Yeah.
Yeah, Venkata. Yeah, okay, Ashish.
Yeah.
Actually, the college is like a base. Okay.
Okay.
You will build your foundation from here.
Mm-hmm.
You have to visit SEBI website. I have shown you one link.
Okay.
There are so many other links that you can go through. First, you have to start with your own SEBI website.
Okay.
You will be first. You must know what are the players that are in the market. Okay.
Okay.
So basically, here you have filings going on. Who are the players? Processing status. How many companies are coming up with issues, with takeovers? Okay. You have an interesting. How many players are there? You will find. So many of the facts or the information that you will find you will find in the on the SEBI website. So you must be knowing this, okay, by heart when you are facing interview.
Okay.
This is the statistics point of view. You must know, like this data that I have come out with, okay, that 80% of the top 10 players are managing the area, or the top 5 players are managing 60% of the area. How I got that data? I got it through the statistics portion. What are the number of PMS players out there in the market? If you want to get typically into a buy side, so these are the players, okay.
Yeah.
So these companies you may call them for your interviews also. This you will not know from college, right? But you have to choose. You have to find out yourself.
Okay.
Also, this is the processing application status. Okay, This is the number of companies or the players that will be coming in the market. So this will be the major player that will be coming in the market. They will be recruiting. If you want to get into AIF or hedge fund, okay, you will be knowing if their application is processed. This you will not know by yourself or through college. You have to find it by yourself. Okay, so this is pending registration.
Yeah, I got your point. Basically, we have to visit the SEBI's website and to do a research on our own, right?
Yeah. And then you have intermediaries, market infrastructure institution. So these are the typical players that are in our industry.
Mm-hmm.
What are the recognized intermediaries? So you have around 700 of AIS registered as on October 9. Stock brokers, how many are there? So typically you have around 5 brokers. So these are your recruiters. So you have to first know them. Who are they? So through this you can know if you want to know, have the contact details, etc. Here you can find everything. So everything is provided by your mother institution. You have to make full advantage of the SEBI website. Secondly,
Nikhil, I have a question. Nikhil,
Yeah,
since you are working in the space of investment, would you like to share what are the basic qualification in terms of, I mean, knowledge, not qualification, knowledge my students need to acquire, which can lead them to job in this area of investment, basically? What is the basic expectations of the employer from the student side? So what the students should groom themselves to be get a right befitting expectation of the employer, so that they acquire the skill, that skill set. Would like to share the students, please?
Yeah, sure, sir. So if you want to get into a buy side in space now, so this, I'm not referring to point number 3. Okay, point number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm referring to 1, FPI 17, 18. Then you will have mutual funds. So typically you have to do first your base should be strong. You must be knowing inside out about the industry. How much AUM they are managing. What are the top 5 or 6 mutual funds that are there. Okay, that is the base. Second, sorry, my computer got disconnected. Second, you must know about the investment universe. What strategy that you want to get into. So if you want to get into a long only strategy, by that I mean buy and hold strategy. Okay. Typically, a fund manager invests and keeps the portfolio of stocks for an investment horizon of 3 to 4 years, or according to the investment mandate. He can churn the portfolio in between, right? So you must know inside out about the stocks that that a typical fund manager or the fund is managing. So you must basically visit AMFI website. Okay. AMFI website, you will get a capitalization of stocks. So basically now for 1 to 100 stocks, if you allow me, I can show you AMFI website also. You have stock categorization. Okay. That gets published on a 6-monthly basis. So basically the top 1 to 100 stocks, you must know the ins and outs, like why is the stock good? What is price to equity of that particular stock? If you are tracking that stock, you should start with a top down approach. Possibly in your valuation, security valuation class now, you will get that feedback or the basically the
Nikhil,
yeah. Go ahead.
yeah. So my basic question was that, like, before joining this company, did you had you had in your mind, ki, I will join this company, basically this sector? Because
Yeah, sir. So I wanted to start my career as a buy side analyst rather than a
okay,
sell side analyst, because you have pressure out there. A typical sell side analyst will have to cover around 10 to 15 stocks in a particular sector. Sectors by sector, I mean, so the working hours out there in sell side, brokerage firm is huge, and you have expectation of the buy side analyst also, and investors also. Okay, so my idea was to basically get into a buy side firm. So I started my internship in Abacus. I got the information through SEBI website only, that I
so basically you had in your mind, right?
Yeah, and I
So basically, you had in your mind, right, that you will join as a buy side analyst, and after doing that, you did the reverse engineering, right?
will not get in.
I'll share one interesting thing of Nikhil. When he was like, we are interviewing him, he has applied all the courses of NISM, and he was working with a public sector.
So my
Sorry, Nikhil. And he was that time working with a
job. Everyone thinks that they would like to join as a buy side analyst or a research analyst without having a background. Okay, no fund manager or no fund will employ them like that. You have to find your own way. If you want to join as a buy side analyst, you have to have you should know the first 10 points. Why should you invest in that particular stock? If market is investing only in Reliance, right, you should know the first 10 points what is the competitive moat, what is its strength, weakness, what is, okay, what is, whatever is, no one will ask you valuation question in your interview. Everyone will ask you typical question like, why should you invest in Reliance? What are the top 5 points or top 6 points that you will that you are attracted to that particular stock or to that sector? Like why the pharmaceutical sector or the IT sector has gone up significantly as compared to the NBFC side or the financial industry side. Okay. So basically, you should know the ins and outs of the career as a research analyst. Now, you have to first you have, if you are not getting into buy side, because you have 600 odd players in the alternate investment space. Okay, you have and that too around 4 or 5 of the players are managing a significant AUM, right? So you will get an opportunity into sell side, and if you get some knowledge of the sectors now, then you can move into buy side, where the working hours will be a little less. Okay, because a typical sell side analyst who covers 4 or 5 sectors now have to work typically 12 to 18 hours a day, because every quarter end there will be quarterly results coming out. News will be flowing on in a daily basis, right? You have to, then only you can inform your investors or your institutional investor. Institutional investors are already institutional investor, I am meaning mutual fund or the buy side you are catering to, right? So these players have so much information source themselves. If you are not informed enough, these players will not even listen to you. So typically your models will not be seen into. So typically sectors that you are looking, you should know why this sector has moved in from March, why pharmaceutical stocks or the sector has moved up, right? Because of typically because you have number of ANDAs coming in. ANDAs is basically regulatory filing in US. You have COVID also. The sales have increased significantly in developed countries. Domestic market have not so much performed for the formulation market or the pharmaceutical sector. So typically you must know 4 or 5 points basic, so that will attract the interviewer. Valuation model second.
Okay, Nikhil, if I say show through the website of SEBI and website of all the market participants, can you actually add something apart from those regulatory websites or exchange websites or market participants website? Can you add something like whether they should also get updated themselves with the newspapers or any extra books other than their textbook? If you want to refer to your juniors, can you add something on that? Yeah, you are audible.
Nikhil is writing that he needs 2 minutes to join back. So should we wait for?
Yeah, we can wait for that.
So I would basically thank everyone who has joined and stayed till here. Despite all the technical issues we had to face, we took care of all this and we still managed to conclude this session till Vodka here. And I would first thing first, I would like to thank Mr. Nikhil Gupta, our esteemed speaker for the session, who precisely explained us everything we had to know about alternate investment funds and hedge funds as a topic of this session too. He also spoke his experience and what except the textbook knowledge or what except the local things which will be gaining from, for example, for example, all the regulations which will be subjected and what the industry players which requires us to be ready with. And while explaining the AIFL book of India, the Indian ranking in the world market in with respect to the mutual funds, PMC, AIF, what are the basic differences between those and their specifications, how the hurdle rate and especially each of the funds works, their history and what all the regulatory changes are required, what are the volumes that India holds in the global ranking. So all these things we took us to all these things with a very wonderful PowerPoint presentation as well as spoke and explained it very clearly. And so I would like to thank Nikhil Gupta very much for today's session, and also I would like to thank Pradeep Karthi Panda sir and Sahil Malik sir who have arranged this wonderful session for us.
I just want to interrupt you in between. I just wanted to show you the research sheets that we go and get on a daily basis. Okay,
Yes,
I'm sharing my screen. See, so as a buy-side analyst, you have around 50 to 70 reports coming in on daily. Okay, I will just show you the screen and the volume of the sheets that we are getting. I'll show you one valuation model also, like Elara, AMSEC research. Okay, this is the practical side I'm showing. We have around 52 names. Okay, to whom we should track on a daily basis. So generally, we will have some good players or the good research analysts that we will be typically be seeing into. Their reports are to be read, and everything else is to be discarded or to be read at a later date. Like this, a logistic monthly update. Okay. So this is coming from Philip Capital. So this analyst is basically covering logistics space, ports and container. So basically, he will give you one report. What I will do is I will share these reports now in Finance Club. You could also have a look at it. We have a Finance Club running into NISM. So I share these reports. You can have what I will suggest you all is to make a sector-wise team. Okay, if you want to get into research profile, make 4 or 5 teams who will cover few stocks and typically a top-down approach. So on every Saturday or Sunday, you can look into these reports, prepare a pitch that you can present to the Finance Club coordinator or to the audience at large. People generally look at your communication skills, also how you can present a topic. So this I am still lacking. I am still working on it. Okay. Anyways, so this is basically yeah. So this is basically a logistics sector report. On a monthly basis, we get it. So what was the container volume? Okay, which ports are working on? Which sector? Which ports have shown a significant volume growth? How much is the profit growth? Should we invest into logistics stocks now, or should we invest into other players or other sectors? This is basically the container movement of rail stocks. So basically, a research guy will typically look at this this analysis and will make an investment thesis, okay, and will present it to the fund manager. So this is the typical Excel thing that we prepare. Which ports have shown significant improvement? Which categories? Which are the revenue drivers? So in security valuation class, you must have heard the word about revenue drivers, cost drivers, right? So this is the typical thing that will come from a sell side, or the buy side will also prepare a similar report. If you want to how a evaluation report looks like. I can show you that also. Anyway, you can go on. I should not interrupt you. Yeah, Manav, you can continue.
You are definitely interrupting. Actually, insights would be really very helpful for us to move further in this case, and definitely all the insights which you gave, all your valuable knowledge and insight which you shared with us, and the suggestions which you just shared, that would be definitely we will be taking into consideration and working upon it, which will ultimately help us in the future. So I once again thank you very much, Mr. Nikhil Gupta, for sharing your time and knowledge with us and enlightening us about this topic with your knowledge. I would also like to thank Pradiptarthi Panda sir and Sahil sir for making this happen and enlightening us about the various other activities of NISM Alumni Network. And also, I would like to thank all the students and attendees. Not to forget, were we were also joined by some officers of NISM. I would especially thank Supriya ma'am and Reshma ma'am for joining us, and all the issues which we faced technically were very deliberately sorted by Akshay sir, who was the IT head. Like for this today's meeting, he coordinated all the IT based difficulties which we face today. So I thank each and everyone, all the listeners, all the participants who joined us for today's meeting and stayed till here, in spite of facing all the technical issues. So thank you very much, and I may now announce this session as ended. Anything else if Panda sir would like to add, or we can close the session?
No, thank you all. Thank you, Sahil sir and Nikhil and all the participants. There are so many alumni also there participated, including students. So thank you all. This is a continuous activity.